So I want to thank all of you again for being here. My name is Obehi A14. I'm living in Italy. I'm originally from Nigeria. The question here today is, what really are the importance of storytelling for African diaspora community? Well, that is what we are going to be exploring today. Now, some 10 years ago, I started what has now led to the 5-part book series that I just concluded. The title of the series is Storytelling Series for Small Businesses and Content Creators. And of course, you can have it on Amazon if you just go there and type that series. Or if you go to Amazon, just put my name there. All the 5 book series will be there. And of course, other books that I've written will be available there. I am interested in learning how you feel about this series. So pick any one of them that you find interesting to start with, or pick all 5 of them and read. Then, of course, share in the comment section what you like about the series or what you can recommend, because we are here to share. It really is important for us. So in 2004, when I came to Verona, Verona is in the northern part of Italy, for those of you who might not know. So I was sort of wondering, looking at the people that I met here, who are these Africans that I met here? What have been their story? What can I learn from them? Because somehow I concluded that somehow I'm going to be like the people that I came to meet many years after. Because whoever I met was one day here in Italy at one time. Then they begin to stay 1 month, they begin to stay 2 years, they begin to stay 5 years, until some of them were like 40 years when I met them here. So I was interested in learning about their story, because I believe that their story, I'm part of their story. So by learning about their story, I'm actually learning about myself. So I spent like 5 years actually doing this story, because I'll be trying to analyze the content that I got from those interviews, talking with different people in northern part of Italy, to be specific, from school teacher, the school director, to parent, trying to understand what is our story. I come to understand that we could actually extend the conversation to other parts of the world where we have African diaspora, in trying to understand what is our story, what is connecting us together. So this is the background of where the story, the 5-part series, is coming from. Now, I would like to read for you a part from one of the books, actually the very first book in the series. The section I'm reading is what I title, What is the Meaning of a Story? Now I read. Well, a story is a description of an event in a sequence of words and sentences. It can be about something that happened or something that might happen in the future, but is presented in a logical sense that can trigger an emotion in the audience. The history of storytelling goes back several thousands of years, both in oral narration and graphic representation of events and experiences. Long before some of the first humans migrated out of Africa, our ancestors were able to travel the large continents because they kept an accurate record of their movement. They knew such vital information as places of food, where to get water, and of course, where the danger lies to avoid. Without this essential information, they would not have survived. So storytelling is also about our survival, not just for entertainment purposes only. End of reading. And I'd like you to pay attention to that as we take the argument into the African diaspora. Now, this afternoon, as I was returning from work in Verona, where I live, I met 2 Nigerian women inside the bus where we were commuting down to the city. For a long time, we have not talked. Now, guess what happened among us? Of course, we engage in what we have always done to build our bond as a people, which is storytelling. If you are like me now, you will usually involve in things like, hey, but how is the family? Have you heard from the people at home? And as we begin to do this, we are beginning to reinforce the bond we have among ourselves, the commonality that we have among ourselves as people that have something in common. In fact, there was a part in the first book in the series, not in this series, but in the first book about the research, which is titled The Journey, African Verona, I was making a reference to a particular event that I found interesting. It had to do with the way Africans worship in the church. And I'll try to describe it looking at lowliness and looking at the way we worship in the church our coming together as a way of conquering our loneliness, as a way of reinforcing our unity. I describe it as recreating Africa away from Africa. Because if you go to a typical European church, I don't know of you if you have, okay, you are living in the West, that is why you are African diaspora, so you must understand what I'm talking about. I was in Germany for a few months, few weeks actually. So I happened to enter into the church. It was very lowly for me, to say the least. It was very low. Only old people actually came. I'm not saying this is general for the whole of German society, but the place I was in Düsseldorf, it was only for only old people that were there, and the place was very cold for me. And if you transfer this to the experience that you have in Africa, people really, when they go to the church, they sing, they dance, they jump around. There is a lot of life in the church service that are done by African people. So when I try to make this comparison in my book, I was saying this is not only about church service, it's also about us shouting together for our common unity. For us in the diaspora, having something of commonality, something that we can share among ourselves, something that we can recall of our identity is something that is absolutely important. Talking of the African diaspora, storytelling holds an immense importance for several reasons. Now, I would just like to point out three ones. I want you to pay attention to them. Preservation of cultural heritage. Storytelling serves as a powerful means of preserving and passing down the rich cultural heritage of the African diaspora. Now, through story, tradition, folklore, and oral narration, the community can maintain a connection to its roots, ensuring that important customs, value, and experiences are not forgotten across generations. Of course, if you are in African diaspora, if you have been here for some time, you understand the picture that I'm trying to paint for you here. In Verona, for example, there is a festival, there is an event that is called Festa di Popoli, Festival di Popoli, or the Feast of the People, as it were. It's a time of the year, it's one of the biggest cultural events in Verona, actually, where people from all over the places come around to organize, to participate in this event. You are there to represent your country, your culture. You dance. You see the Brazilian. You see the African, different countries from Africa. You see the Asia. All of them dancing. Well, you might look at it that is there even a sense to it? Of course, there is a sense to it because we are looking for a way for people to unite around something important for them. Your culture, the way you speak your language, the way you dance, the way you identify yourself as a community. So it is very important that we do this. Otherwise, we will forget them. Now, your children will not know where you are coming from in the sense of cultural orientation. So it is very important that we use storytelling to preserve our cultural heritage, particularly for those of us that are in the diaspora. Now, another thing that storytelling helps us to do is identity and self-representation. The African diaspora has faced historic challenges relating to identity and self-representation. Okay, question of identity, I love it a lot. I've written a book on it. I've talked a lot about it because I think it is very important for the African diaspora. So storytelling allow us, therefore, as individuals, as a community, to assert our own narrative, reclaim our history, and challenge negative stereotype and misrepresentation. It is through our storytelling that we will be able to do this and make sure that our story are told, not just that our story are told, but are told from our own point of view, from the way we want it to be told. So that at a point we should be tired of, they are not telling our story. It is not their duty to tell our story. It is our duty to tell our story and to tell it the way we want it to be told. We are going to, of course, struggle for that. Now, another thing that I think storytelling does for a community like us, the African diaspora, is healing and empowerment. Now, storytelling can be a powerful tool also for this, in that it helps us to heal and to empower us as a community of African diaspora. It provides a space for individuals to express their emotion, process trauma, and share personal experiences, which might why not relate to historic injustice such as slavery, colonialism, from discrimination. So through storytelling or the sharing of story, individual can find solace, support, and resilience. And a community is able to collectively heal and strengthen itself by the use of collective stories, something that they share among themselves. So in essence, there is a lot of things storytelling can do to the African diaspora community. And of course, we are here to explore this collective goods. How can we use storytelling to build our community? What are the important that they really have for us? So I hope I haven't spoken so much. So thank all of you for listening. Now it's time for Eddie to say something about the topic that we have today. Then we're going to open up the conversation because we have three important points that we're going to be exploring. All of you are invited. All of you, we are here to listen to you. Annie, thank you so much. It's your time.
I love the passion. I mean, the message is so important that we need to get worked up about our storytelling. We should. That's why I support this room. That's why this room means so much to me. And amongst the many rooms I do. Welcome more people, then I'll tell you my thoughts. Yemi, welcome. Emily, great to have you here. Dr. Ikechi, you're here. He's a great professor of agriculture. You should connect with him. Nidhi, I'm glad you're here. Priscilla, Oluwaseyi, I'm glad you're here too. Spoke to you last week. No, we're great friends now. Brian, Louise, so thank you for joining. Kofi, Evans, Bimbola, my twin sister, or triplets really, with Miss Aya. Wilson, I see you. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us, all of you. If I've missed anyone out, I will mention your name. Olai Tan, welcome as well. Chloe, great to have you here always. Right, people. As Obehi mentions many important things. So I think storytelling is, it's an important thing for us as Africans who are not in Africa. Just but even as business owners, even adding to the list Obehi gave for the benefits of storytelling. I think storytelling really, it's. I read somewhere today, our ancestors they didn't show people graphs, they didn't show people spreadsheets, they didn't show them reports. They told stories. That's how people remember what the important message is. And the same thing in business, really. We can use stories to get people to remember our business primarily. And then when they remember our business, because we made them think or feel something, whether that's identifying with the story, identifying with us as business people, as providers, essentially when they remember what we said or what we do, then more chance when the time comes they will come and buy from us. So Obehi mentioned many of the different things, the risks of not telling our stories. I'm a marketer primarily, so I run a marketing agency. So I'm lucky to work with amazing people like Obehi who they do amazing things, and my job is to get them seen by more people who can benefit from their services. That's why I put these rooms on. So these rooms are part of the service I provide. If you want to run an audio room, then please do connect with me. I've got a room starting tomorrow, Tuesday. I think it's 4 p.m. UK time, where we're going to be talking with African people about the challenges of African businesses. What's holding us back, and how can we move forward? We want to find solutions to our problem. This is what I do for a living. I'm driven to help businesses grow. My passion right now is helping African businesses to take on the world, the global business environment that we're all facing. Why am I so keen to help my African brothers and sisters? Simple reason is our message is easy to be diluted, and as somebody mentioned, in the presentation, we can easily be forgotten. We can let our history be forgotten, which would be a tragedy. That is just how life is. So what I want to say today, if you're wondering why I guess why I'm concerned, so when I look around me, as a business owner in England, when I look around me, there's stories that we tell, which essentially they're generic stories. They appeal to the masses. But essentially, as Obehi said, what's happened is that people have taken our stories and almost they ripped them away from us, and they use them as if they're their stories. Yeah, but that's not their problem. That's our problem. We should address that and begin to use our stories to help us. Tell our stories, and let's make our identity part of the story. I think it's so important. Now, I mention identity simply because if you look around you, I watch telly every day. I'm sure everyone here does. For those who are not in Africa, every advert these days seems to have the perfect mix of people. There's white people. There's black people. Oh no, there's mixed race. There's always light skinned people. Never a real person who looks like me, by the way. Never a person who looks like you. It doesn't. You don't have a dark black person on an advert apparently, or in pictures. And I think of the pictures you've seen for business ads. How many have actually had a black person on them? Yeah, not many. The light skinned people apparently look better than we do, so they should be on everything. That's a travesty. As businesses, we need to learn to use our images and to begin to reference our symbols and our legends in the stories we tell for our business. Now, I mentioned symbols and legends. Symbols essentially, they're simple way shortcut to explain things that help people to understand what we're talking about almost instantly. So as a marketer, we talk about marketing funnels. When I say funnel, every Nigerian here, every African here knows what a funnel is because I bet you've seen one or touched one in the last couple of days. In the Western world, we don't touch funnels. My son doesn't know what a funnel is. He knows what it is from the concept. Doesn't know. He has never actually seen one in front of him. Here's a funnel. To an African, when I say a funnel, marketing funnel, you understand that it's going to be broad, wide at the top, and narrows down to the bottom, right? So when I say you should use that for your marketing, it's not hard for me to explain to you that the concept means simply get a lot of people in at the top, and they'll get less and less until a few drop out to the bottom. Those who actually buy from you. Right. Now that's a story. That's our story, which people have appropriated away from us. Let me give you another one that I use in business again, which you wouldn't believe is to do with us as Africans. We refer to businesses. I refer to businesses almost like a seed grown in a farm that I had when I was a kid in Nigeria. Again, every African here probably had a farm or worked in their parents' farm, however big. And you understand the symbolism of the fruits that comes at the end when you look after your farm, whether you're growing corn, whether you're growing something, whether you're growing mangoes, whether you're growing anything else. You understand what that means. That you have to take care of your farm. You have to work on it. You have to. It takes time. We understand all this because the seed concept is a symbol that means something to us as Africans. My point today is simply this: we need to understand and start using our images, our symbols, and our legends. Legends being stories that are passed down from generations. Are they true? Who knows? What are we? What's our stories? How can we use them? So the last I want to say before we pass the mic, and hopefully you come up on stage, is that we need to learn how to tell stories. If the idea of using our stories has you slightly concerned about how do I do that, this is where Obehi's books come into it. He's made it very simple to learn how to tell stories, and I always say go to his books, check them out, see what you can learn from them. There is a free chapter you can get, so you can see whether the way he writes, the way he talks is to your liking, and then you can look at buying the books on Amazon afterwards. If we don't learn to tell our stories, no one's going to tell our stories. But once you learn how to tell good stories, as Obehi says, our history is continued. We're more empowered. You can appeal. You can relate to people instantly, especially people who are out of the African diaspora, people who are African primarily. If you're a Western person, a white person who wants to sell to Africans, now if you understand the stories and use the stories, you will get more customers because we get the stories. We buy into them. That will buy into your business. This is why I love this room, really. So over here, I could talk on, but let's open the floor. For me today, what I really want to learn is how our audience use symbols and legends from Africa to make their business work. What are your stories? And how do they work for you? Before I give you the mic back over here, I can see more people joining us. So Emo, welcome. Christabel, great to have you here. Stephanie, Lark, the amazing Lark, mental health. It's a massive mental health coach, mental fitness coach is what Lark really does. So great to have you all here. IB, I see you too, my friend. I could talk on, but let me keep quiet. I'll pass the mic back to you over here.
Thank you so much, Ene. We need the energy in the room. So yeah, you are not talking too much. In fact, we are here for this. I believe the audience agree with me. All right, now let me just lay out the conversation that we are going to be having just now. Of course, any of you that want to speak first, you can please raise your hand so we add you to the room. The floor again is yours. You are not just here as listener. We want to hear from you. That is really important. Okay? Now, like Annie has pointed out, it is important that we understand what symbols and legend do you employ in your story, or should we employ in our story? Because now, story is important again. If we look at it from the point of view of history, because history just two terms that are mixed together, or that are actually meshed together. His and story. What I want us to pick from there is that it's always a point of view. It's always, how are you seeing it? And this is where I think it is important that as Africans and as people of African diaspora or descent, if you way you want to put it, it is absolutely important that we let the world know our point of view. We let the world know from where are we reading the reality. Of course, we can expand on that to see how much impact that is having on us, whether in Africa or in the diaspora. So when any mention symbols and legend, it is not just to throw it out there. It is fundamental. It is absolutely fundamental. Here, we're talking of reference. What is your frame of reference when you tell your story? When you communicate to other people, what are you referencing? You see, one time I was having because here in Italy, I really have had a number of conversations because of the work that I do, because I've been doing this research. So sometimes I go to the university, I go to secondary school, I go to a social event where I'm called upon to explain what I'm seeing. So on a number of occasions, I have said that even for the Africans that are living in Italy, for their own good, they need to learn the Italian language, one, but they also need to learn their own story, because now you are going to exchange. Now, this is particularly important for the second generation or the third generation, those that are not really, they have never really grew up in Africa. They are born here, but born by African parents. It is important for them that they know a bit about their parent history. Because you might think that the European or the West look at you as one of their own. Yeah, it is true. They might look at you as one of their own. But there is a difference in that your parents are coming from somewhere. Somehow you are going to exchange. It is not just enough that, okay, let's everybody come and start share your history with me. Then you are reading the Bible for me. Everybody know how to read the Bible, no? I want to know something that is different, that separates you from every other person. That is where we are talking of the legend, story, the history, the peculiarity, those things that are your perfume. They are things that are separating you from every other person. Because if you are wearing Nike, I am wearing Nike, the Chinese are wearing Nike, who are we? We get lost. We must be able to interpret the reality from our point of view also. I know this might not be the popular conversation, but it is something that we need to do. All right, that is one. So you can share with us, how do you or how should we use symbol and legend in our storytelling, looking at the African diaspora? Now, the second point that we might need to consider is storytelling as a bridge. I mean, how can we connect to diverse African diaspora community through the exchange of story, so that it can help us to foster understanding, empathy, and unity? Now, let me quickly share something there. Now, I'm reviewing the first book in this project, which is The Journey. As I'm reviewing it, at a point, I'm saying that even me, I have to learn a lot about other Africans in Verona. I am an African. I live in Africa all my life until the age of 24 before I left Nigeria to Italy and in Verona. But I didn't know a lot about other African countries, their culture. I might have heard of it. I've never been to Congo. I've never been to Eritrea. But because I am in Verona and all of us are meeting here, we come to sort of exchange our value, our core principle, who we are, how we do certain things. So that what I was trying to point out there is that the error of grouping all the immigrants together or all the Africans together as if they were just a group of people, sometimes we need to diffuse that. We need to sort of take the time to explain what are we really talking about. Because like I'm saying, I never knew how the Congolese people really explain certain things until I meet them here. For me to know that, it means I need to go to Congo, and because culture is not something you really need to read about. You need to experience it. It's something that is alive. You need to know what it is. So, as African diaspora, we can actually use storytelling to make the bridge to connect among ourselves. Now, the third point is empowering identity and culture through storytelling. In that, we might be able to, or let me ask you, how might we use storytelling to amplify the marginalized voice, for example, so that our voice can be heard? So, whatever you think it is important in this point, you can raise it or share about it or explain your point of view, because again, we are interested in how you see it, your point of view. Now, the last but not the least, the fourth one is using storytelling to inspire change in the community. Now, let me just share something with you here. In 2010, I published a book that I titled Underdevelopment in Africa, My Hands Are Clean. Okay, if you know a bit about my work, you know that there is a line that I like a lot. It's about the responsibility of the people. So in 2015, again, just so I want to connect it to, I did a documentary that I titled Pan-Africanism, Testing Idea on Reality. Even that too, I'm looking for the responsibility of the African people when it comes to underdevelopment, where we are today. So I just wanted to clarify that. So in 2010, when I was presenting this book in Verona here, after I presented the book, a young child came to me and said, "Oh, me, I want to be a writer." Then I'd ask her why. She said, "Well, I want to be like you." Anyway, I just stopped it there. I want her to take a moment to reflect on that. You see, we need to see other people that look like us doing things that make them feel good. They might take after us and do that thing that is good. You know, when we tell story, we are inspiring other people to also tell their story. It's like we are giving them the boldness to stand up and also tell their story. Because now I tell my own, then you can also tell your own. The other one can also tell his own. So story, by sharing story among ourselves as African in the diaspora, we can encourage a larger story, a much deeper story, a much profound story, because other people now sort of suddenly get encouraged and they continue to tell story. So those are the 4 points I would like us to reflect on today. So I don't know who is that person that is not shy that want to say something. I didn't see any hand raised. Okay, all right, I get you. Listen, you don't need to be shy.
Only one
We are all
second.
here. We are all here just sharing. Just tell
Abimbola,
them.
come on, talk to us. Now, you're a storyteller. Chloe, you're a storyteller. Don't be shy, people. Come on, talk. Come on, tell us what you're doing. What stories are you telling? Miss Aya, you're a storyteller too. Business leader. Grace, you got stories to tell. I know from working with you. Why are you being shy? Come on, talk to us. Unless you really can't. Gloria, I see you too. Paulette, I see you as well. So come on, talk to us.
All right, thank you for that, Annie. Now, I think the first person that is speaking here, in the order of the present here, of course, is Oluwaseyi. If I pronounce the name badly, please forgive me. And I remind all of us again that for the sake of those who are not here, we are recording the room so that it can be available for them to see, because we believe that what we are doing here is relevant. That is why we are recording it. So please go ahead, Mr. Oluwaseyi.
Hi, everyone. A very good day to you all. I am just very, very happy that Eddie invited me to this particular event. Storytelling means a lot to me personally. I wasn't going to raise my hand and say anything, because one of the things that Eddie has taught me is that it's not every time that you have something to say that you do say it. Sometimes you just listen, because it's quite possible that someone else will say precisely what you have in mind. But I decided to go ahead in this case because no one else had raised their hand, and because this is a particularly important topic to me. You see, I'm 50 years old now, so I've been around a while. I would call you all brothers and sisters, because fundamentally, as human beings, we're all brothers and sisters, regardless of our racial or national extractions. Now, the thing is that whoever holds the power to control storytelling has a lot of influence, and they can use that influence positively or negatively. And I believe passionately, Annie and I have spent some time talking together, and he knows that this is a very important thing to me. You have the media all over the world, the Fox News, CNN, Al Jazeera, and a lot of other, media outlets, and they exert some measure of influence. And the ideology of the particular outlet gets to be advocated, and promoted, and that has a lot of influence on all of us. I believe strongly that for us to truly be independent and free people, we must have a storytelling structure in place, either individually as groups, and we must take control of the telling of our own stories. For instance, I'm about to round this up so that I give other people the opportunity to speak. I grew up reading Marvel and DC comics. I grew up watching movies because my dad had been in Denmark for some years and all that. You would find out in recent years, Hollywood seems to be devoid of stories. A lot of the movies that come out are rehashes of old stories, some of them stories that a lot of us identify with because we grew up with them, and then they take some of those stories, and what they do is they distort some of the fundamental principles in them. I'm not going to go into that at length. Now, for instance, you have the movie of the Black Panther and all of that. I love the fact that they made a movie that had to do significantly with Africa, but that is not good enough. As you said, Obehi, we have a culture, we have history, we have a heritage. For us to truly be independent and free peoples, because like you said, we're not all just Africans. In Nigeria alone, we have about 250 ethnic groups. Even within some ethnic groups, you have various dialects and stories. It is about time for us to have our place, because it will not only identify us, it will give us a power over the influence of the younger generation. And if you need me at any point in time for further discussion on this or work, please, I'm available. It is best. I'm actually talking with someone in Italy right now about launching a series of digital comics on African mythological, characters, particularly Nigeria, Shango, Oya, and so on and so forth, fusing them into contemporary stories to teach some of those values that we used to know that make us who we are. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and God bless everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, brother. You are a man after my own heart. Definitely, I'm going to be contacting you so we can expand on this issue because it's fundamental. It's fundamental. We are looking at the basis of what is our identity. Who are you? It is very important that we do this through the evidence that was left behind by what we represent as a people and everything about us. You see, anyway, I don't really, I'm really boiling with a lot of emotion about what you are saying there, and the storytelling as a concept. It for me is so powerful. Anyway, let leave other people to talk. We will come back to this later. Ikechi, I think it's your time. Please teach us something. We are interested in learning from you.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Annie. Hello, Obehi. Thank you so much. Thank you, Oluwaseyi, for what you have said. I am so happy to be on this platform today. Obehi, it's as though you came for me. It's as though you came for me. I'm going to be really quick. Okay. So let me introduce myself first so you know where I'm coming from. I am an early childhood educator and childhood educator for kids. I've worked with kids for like 15 years. I have run a school, and running a school, I found out that most of our content for children, especially, I'm concerned about kids, not necessarily adults, right? Most of our content that children feed on is mostly on Western stories. And that's fine, they're able to identify with the world around them, know about places, people, different cultures. And anytime they get to be outside of the country, they're able to immediately adapt. And that's fine. But what's missing is actually our own stories, you know? So I went on a mission and I was like, okay, fine, let me start creating stories. That's why I'm really happy. I'm an author of 6 published books so far. 11 I have done for classroom work, and then the other ones for children's stories on indigenous content, and that's how children can identify with a modern child in Nigeria. We're not necessarily anymore, we shouldn't be telling stories anymore about huts, rivers, and calabashes and all those things. They don't know those things. The kids who live in urban places don't know those things. So that's the mission, is to get kids to understand culture, but culture in an urban place, and even perhaps in public schools too. Reach out to kids in public schools and help them identify, somehow bridge the gap between the really our society is quite ostentatious, and of course we have the really poor ones, right? Somehow see themselves in these stories and then bridge the gap, between these two worlds, and know that there is a tomorrow that they have to work in. It's a future that is theirs and they have to succeed in. So that's basically the mission of my stories. And it's called The Adventure of Other Books. Now, some of the challenges I've found out, right, in breaking into this, it's change, and change can be quite difficult, or may not be welcomed initially. I found that, for the marketing strategy and stuff like that, our people are not quite welcoming to these new changes, even though they see the quality of the stories, they see the quality of the illustrations, and even the content of the books. We've had several feedback, wonderful feedback. But I don't know if what our problem is we don't want to identify with who we are. And it's dangerous because we need our original selves. And, to put something on the table on the global scale is, you have to, it's your own voice or it's your own flavor, like you said, Obehi. You have to bring out there for people to really understand. It's nobody's responsibility to do that. We have to do that for ourselves, for our kids. There's a saying, it's anonymous, that says old men plant trees that they will not use, but the future generation will use as shade. And that's what building a secure future is about, you know? So, unfortunately, even though we have Hollywood, we have those wonderful stories, we have, culture changing to be popular, and, our people are actually going along with the flow. There is something about funding. We also need to get the funding right to get our culture out there. If not, we're going to have people who are trying to make these changes get frustrated. So that's just my take. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I really do, Kechi. I appreciate you. See, this is the point that we are talking about here, and it is fundamental that our story are not just left there for story is like the centerpiece of information, and information is paramount to any institution or government. You see, anyway, I believe we also come back to this again because I think it's fundamental. The thing that you are touching and the thing also that Oluwaseyi has touched. All right, now as we are moving in the first round, Chloe, now it is your turn. We want to hear what you have to say. We are interested in your story.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being interested in my story. I'm probably conspicuously one of the lighter skinned folks here. My father is Mexican, so I'm half Mexican, and I'm just moving out of using the term Hispanic. So I'm sure you probably all understand what it's like to have to choose your labels and how stressful and frustrating that can be, and also a beautiful process. Um, I'm 29. I'm a beginner somatic coach. I've dealt with major anxiety and depression that I've kind of broken through. I was recently homeless after a family member tried to attack me, and I'm getting back up on my feet. So these kinds of events, having materialized for me, are incredibly motivating, and as I'm sure they are for all of you. So I had some ideas I wanted to share quickly here, and I'm actually sitting, because I share a hotel room with my mom and I wanted her to be able to watch TV right now. I'm actually sitting on the floor in my bathroom in the dark because when you turn on the light, the fan runs and it's incredibly loud. So that's what I'm doing to be here today. That's how much I appreciate you guys. I was thinking when Obehi started speaking, because I love his podcast, I was thinking to myself, he tells a human story. And you look at the range of guests he's had on, and I was thinking it would be so easy for somebody to look at me and say, oh, there's just a white woman, without knowing my background, or oh, which would not sum me up at all. Or, oh, there's only a woman. She's just a woman, or she's just somebody who has a medical condition. She's just disabled. And none of that would adequately describe me. So, in other words, they're responding from the heart thought that this person is worth nothing to me. And what I find so interesting here is in this group, you're all wide eyed enough to see everybody's individual background and to value it. And there's so many things that were said where I started to tear up, because I think the reason identity is so important to me is because my identity was very poor and depleted for a long time. And I think a lot of people who are financially poor have a depleted sense of their cultural worth and their personal worth and their identity, and how they actually matter so greatly to their country, right? But are often overlooked by their government and by the ostentatious, to use the word. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Nkechi? Oh gosh, I probably just butchered it. But your
No,
photograph.
that's right. That's good. Thanks.
Thank you. So, and I also loved when you said that you were concerned about kids and not adults, and that they do adapt to Western content immediately. So I understand that from this perspective of having great concern of the world losing their cultural voices, because I think that we're stronger when we're not whitewashed. I think that white heritage is going to always play a place in our growth as a world, and but primarily in our trauma. And I've had to kind of I've faced discrimination at school. I've faced somebody wanting to harm me physically, and using that verbal violence before the physical to so I understand a little bit of what some people who go through this on a daily basis are dealing with, and the amount of internal pressure that creates is just it's like your organs are being cooked all the time and you're sweating and you're stressed, and it's like, "Oh my god, how am I going to get through this day?" But you know you have to survive. And I think what storytelling does is it gives us 3 R's. So I got this while Wase was talking, and it's to get us through these experiences and back into a thriving mental fitness. I think Annie used the term mental fitness, and I just loved that. So that would be, to me, the 3 R's would be representing, reflecting, and referencing. And then Obehi said, "Who are you?" And I thought about that, and I thought, wow, you know what? The caterpillar with the hookah says that in Alice in Wonderland. So I think that that's a fundamental question that we have to maybe even be constantly asking ourselves as we grow up each day. Because even into our 50s, 60s, and 70s, right, we're growing constantly. So, and I grow every time I come to this group. I'm surprised by the thoughts I have, and then I'm surprised that I'm ready to share. So either it was a Behi or Annie, I think, who called us out and was like, "Come on, guys, share." So thank you for doing that. And I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna go and pass the mic on.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate you. All right. Anyway, I'm going to allow you to reflect on something before we move the mic to Andre. Before then, I want to remind everybody again that the 4 points that we are reflecting on just now are: one, storytelling with symbol and legend. What symbol and legend are you using? Storytelling as a bridge in the diaspora community. How might we use that to bridge the different cultural dimension that we have? Because we are not just a group of one people. The third is empowering identity and culture through storytelling. The fourth is inspiring change and social impact with storytelling. Annie, what is your take on what we have heard so far from the three people? Then after you, we will move to Andre.
That's amazing shares. I mean, everyone who's spoken so far, you get it. That's my main. That's what I really want to say. You get why we got this room, why what we're talking about, the need for telling our stories. It's great. It's heartwarming. I think Chloe said sometimes it can be quite emotion rousing. It definitely. I sit here and I listen to you. I think, oh, that's it. That's it. It's we have a duty, and it makes my day that Oluwaseyi and Nkechi, I don't know, they're doing their bit. We have to tell a story. We have to leave a record. We have to leave, make a path for the next generation. If we don't do it, who's going to do it for us? Someone can argue that there's a whole conspiracy to wipe us off the records. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But we can use our stories in a positive light. We can be proud of who we are. Again, Chloe referenced that quite well. We have it's within us. and let's do so. Let's begin to do so. I say again, if you don't know how to do it, then talk to those around you, connect with people. Check out his books, and find other people here have written books. And other people here, they're brand storytellers. The Chairmaker I'm looking at, she tells stories every day. David Bauer, he tells stories every day. He writes amazing stories. Now, Fumini, he tells stories. He's doing amazing things. Let's share. Let's become proud of what we do. Let's begin. Dr. Marsha, she's amazing at telling stories too. What stories are you telling? We need to get inspired by you. That's what I want to say over here. I want to mention Wilson, that's stuck in no man's land. I don't like anyone stuck in no man's land. It's because you don't count on stage or you don't count on the audience either. That's a marketer that ruins my numbers. Wilson, we can't bring you up, my friend. We're trying. We've tried. Please, anything I can suggest, my friend, leave the room. So literally leave and then refresh your page and then come back in again. We'll try again. We'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, thank you. And hopefully you can hear me. I'm just loving the conversation, actually. Just listening to everyone who's spoken already has been really I literally feel the energy in me at the moment. It's tangible. So to be honest, I never really understood too much about storytelling traditionally until I made a connection with someone who was a griot back home in Sierra Leone. And we created an event together. And I guess being under his wing was where I really understood the power of storytelling as an idea, as a communication tool, as a way to teach, as a way to build connections with the Pan-African community and to build identity and self-esteem. And it was really interesting then to see how he transferred those principles into business. And he used that as a way to communicate in a professional setting as well. And one of the things I learned from him was the idea, as we're talking about bridging the diaspora, I was writing part of a white paper on Pan-African citizenship with a group called African History Project. And my part was how to bring the idea of Pan-African citizenship into the home. And one of the things that we talked about was looking at where the touch points are in your daily life, where we experience stories. And that opened up a whole new book for me, because whether it's the music we listen to, the adverts we see on screen, or the programs we watch, the games we play, the books we read, everywhere is stories. And similar to what was said earlier, I realized that very few of the ones that I know me, when I went to my cousins' houses and stuff, very few of them were African stories that we were exposing ourselves or our children to. And it just really stuck in my mind about how, in a world where we are surrounded by access to information and technology, those things can be fixed in a way. So and that's one of the things I wrote about, if you love to listen to music, have a listen to African music. If you like, books and stuff, we've already talked about the stories and how a lot of traditional ideas, like I was reading up about the hero's journey recently, and it's really just African spirituality put into a text with a Greek face on it. And it's and a lot of those things are from our own. And I found that when we understand that, which takes a little bit of I think for me anyway, it was just the desire to learn and just to assume that I don't know everything. And if I assume I don't know everything, then it means that there's more to learn. And when I'm on that journey, I tend to find so much that is actually interesting. It's and then finding a way to bring that into the home. So like I said, there were so many opportunities for that. There were games, there were TV channels completely for children. And one of the things that Nkechi was saying about being focused on children, for me, I found that what works with children often works with adults. So one of the things I do is I'm a dance teacher, and some of the ways that I teach children is the same way I teach adults. I use the same stories because stories are eternal. And one of the things I love about them is that they capture the imagination. One of the things about the imagination is I found that they have the power to invoke the senses. So if you deliver a brilliant story, you can smell it, you can taste it, you can touch. It's visceral. And I think that's one of the reasons why I feel like we connect stories and why some of these stories have maintained for hundreds of years is because a good story will connect to you no matter what period in time you hear it, because the messages are timeless. The characters you can relate to, and the experiences are things that we go through on a day-to-day basis. I didn't want to go on too long, but it's just really exciting topic. Really glad to be in a room, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Andre. Thank you. I appreciate that. I like a lot of things that you said, but I really want to single out when you said something that I think many of us will have paid attention to, which is starting from the point of view that we don't know everything. We are learning. We are here to learn from each other. No one is a teacher here. All of us are students, but we are students of life. I think that is very interesting. Now, let's think about that for a moment. If you think you know everything, you are closing the door of knowledge against yourself. And what you will soon realize is that you know nothing. But if you can be humble, admit that you don't know everything yet, then now everything is open for you to learn from. Like you are not filling the cup, because if it is filled, nothing can enter anymore. So I really want to thank you for that. That is very important. Now, for whether storytelling can actually help us, of course, in a lot of ways. We talked in this episode, in some other episode, we talked about how we can use it in business. If you look at businesses, different companies in the world, different brands from Apple to Microsoft to Tesla, if they are selling well, because they are able to lace storytelling into it. And of course, today we are not talking about storytelling from the point of view of business. We are looking at it from the point of view of survivor, of us, African diaspora. How can we use it to build our community? Because it is very important. This is not something to be taken lightly. All right. So thank you, Dr. Mansha, for joining us. Now, Wilson will talk. After him, you will talk. Yeah, Wilson, please teach us something.
Hello, finally I made it onto the floor. Hello, everybody. I'm talking to you from the island of Nevis in the Caribbean. Very briefly, my story. So I was born in England. My mother was one of the Windrush generation, so she went from Nevis to the UK to help with the infrastructure. She was in medicine. My father, being Nigerian, also went into the UK. They met, got married, had me. 5 years later, got divorced. I went into the white care home system. So I was fostered. I guess that was in my imprint years, and I became very, I guess, Europeanized in my attitude. And I mean, you can hear the way that I speak, which I quite often get, I would say, judged on, especially by people here in the Caribbean, but I don't really care about that. Later on in my life, I went into the British military. I had a 12-year, very successful career. I then came out of the military, went into one of the big banking groups in the UK, became a financial consultant. Didn't really like that much, although the work was actually okay. I just couldn't settle. I didn't feel that I was able to be me. Totally institutionalized by the military, which I didn't see as a bad thing. Cut a long story short, then in the year 2001, I quit the UK and I went to live, you're going to love this one, in Berchtesgaden. And Berchtesgaden was Hitler's holiday town in the south of Germany. So it's where his eagle's nest was. And my balcony actually looked right up to his little fortress, which is all closed down and everything now. Anyway, while I was there, I was really pretty much the only black-skinned person in Bertis Garden, and definitely in my village. And it was actually fine. I found that German people, especially the southern people, were very open-minded, and it wasn't the fact that I was telling a story. I was my story, because I then became a coach. I became a language, an English communication coach, and people were very interested as to what this black man is doing in southern Germany. Then in 2016, when we had the refugee crisis and Angela Merkel opened the doors and there were floods of refugees coming through, we set up refugee centers. And then all of a sudden, me personally, I wasn't a minority anymore. Not that I felt that I was one, but I felt very, very strange. I can't really put my words to it. And then what then happened, because I was a coach for the BMW Motor Group, Porsche, Red Bull, I was living a certain lifestyle, but I was also doing volunteer work in the refugee centers and listening to their stories, the horrible stories of survival. And I felt kind of embarrassed that I had this success. But then I started working with these guys, and I find that what's really, really important is the sense of identity. So one of the things that I started doing was to coach people in creating identity statements, and that gives them the power base from which to work from. So for me now, I've gone on to the next chapter of my life, which was to come out here to look after my mum, who's recently passed away. But even so, I've got this programming in my head on this small island here in the Caribbean. I'm half Nigerian, let's say a third Nigerian, a third West Indian, and a third English. It's almost like I feel like I'm an outcast, but there are benefits to that. So I think that what I have become in my own identity for people is I elevate people, I can inspire people with my story, and it empowers them to do better for themselves, especially the young men on this island who are just really lost. They look at working only in tourism and on farming, but they don't realize that we are powerful people who have been kept down for too long. And if I am testimony to the success that Black people can get, as long as everybody else here, then they can do it as well. And that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you so much. You see, I'm clapping for you. That is powerful, my brother. That is really, really powerful. Storytelling help us to overcome almost all the borders, all the blockade that is in front of us. We need to own our story. If we own it, then we are able to go very far. You see, the United States spend billions of dollars every year in crafting their story. These are master storytellers. Because I think somebody was saying before, I think, was it Oluwaseyi or Ikechi, that those who control story, or maybe Andre, those who control story will always control those that they are influencing. That is not something to be taken lightly. It is true, literally true. Now, imagine that in the diaspora, we are not in charge of our story. We are not in charge of the content that we consume. Our way of life is not reflected in it, yet we are consuming it, and we think it's going to go well for us. It's not going to go well, because when the information that you are consuming is conditioning you. If you are not influencing that information, the information is influencing you. So there is no room for neutrality in it at all. There is no room for neutrality. You are going to either participate and therefore be on the driver's seat where you are riding your destination, or you are be ready until they take you to where they want to take you to. It is your choice now. All right, Dr. Marsha, thank you so much for joining us. We want to hear from you. Now, before you say something, I want to remind you that we are recording the room for the sake of those who are not here so that they can listen to the conversation afterward. Now, the 4 key points that we are reflecting on, one of them is storytelling with symbol and legend, which is What legend and symbol are you using in your story to reflect you as an African or somebody of African descent? The second point is storytelling as a bridge. How can we use it to bridge ourselves within the African diaspora so that we can connect among ourselves? The third is empowering identity and culture through storytelling. The fourth is inspiring change and social impact with storytelling. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am very happy to be here. I am connected to Africa by virtue of my great grandmother, who migrated to Jamaica years ago and fell in love with my grandfather, who was also of African descent from another side of Maroons. And they merged together and they produced, well, I am the sixth generation. So I have never been to Africa, but I have been taught of many of the ways and traditions and cultures from the perspective of my grandmother, my great grandmother, who taught it to my grandmother, who I spent a lot of time with and I love dearly. From that experience, I have garnered that two powerful roles to inspire from our stories is that we must use our stories to clarify. And when I say clarify, I give an experience as a principal. When I became a principal, I became a principal of what is called the disadvantaged rural schools, and there are a number of them in the context of Nigeria and everywhere else, because I did my study and published my study after visiting Malaysia and many countries, and found that the disadvantaged rural schools are very similar, but there are some assumptions that are placed on them that we who operate and become a part of their experience become their voice. And I have a real commitment to becoming the voice of who I describe as the voiceless by telling the stories to clarify. And as we clarify, we are able to help because the truth is presented from the perspective of those who are experiencing it, who are living it. You cannot walk in anybody's shoes unless you put them on. You cannot truly understand it. And for that reason, I found that I became a clarifying voice. The next thing that I think our stories must do for us is that they must wash our spirits. Our spirits, a long time we have been fed by so many stories, especially growing up in the education system of which we seek to excel and to become known and to become idolized as great and brilliant and experts and so on. But we take on their stories and we become immersed in a situation where we become ashamed of our stories. And our stories are powerful enough to change. And so the stories that we have must wash our spirits when we begin to make that comparison. We became worthy to stand in the spot that we were. We were positioned. It is a part of our destiny. Anywhere we reach, it becomes a part of our destiny. It becomes a part of our history. It becomes a part of our story. It changes our spirits and it empowers or breaks us down. If you are broken down, your story becomes more powerful as an empowerment tool to wash your spirit. If you remain, then your story becomes a powerful story to wash other people's spirit because you are now a survivor. You are now a resilient hallmark. You have become a reference point. A lot of us take those things very simply, very, very simply. But if we get into the habit of using our stories to clarify and to wash our spirits, then we become an unbeatable force, and the story gets out there to convince others of who they really are because we now show them that they are no longer obscure and they no longer need to be afraid. That's just my simple points.
That is powerful. And that is really, really powerful. See, there is just few things I want us to take into consideration there as we expand on it. Because now, I will, of course, ask more people that are in the room to share their view. That let's think for a moment, because we're talking of the African diaspora, of the Africa that were enslaved, that were taken away from Africa during slavery and taken the plantation camp, whether you are looking at then in Brazil or in the Caribbean or in the United States. Some of them took part of their story with them. I'm talking of after they have been beaten day and night that they should forget their story, while other stories are planted in them. Some of them managed to preserve some of their story. And that story will help them to overcome many of the challenges before the abolition of slavery. Many of them will organize and execute a plan in the front of the enemy. The enemy will not understand what has happened because it was not written in the language that they could understand it. That is also codification. Telling story as a means of survival. If I understand what you understand, I can talk to you in a way that you can understand me. Even somebody else might be hearing me, but they will not understand me. You see, I begin today by saying that I was in a bus coming home and I met some Nigerians inside the bus. So those Nigerians I met, they were coming from my place. So we were speaking Ishan inside the bus. The Italian that were inside the bus didn't hear what we were saying. We could have done anything, said anything. They didn't hear what we were saying. Now, imagine what that could mean for us if we could use story in a way to reinforce our line, to build our unity, and to make sure that our identity is always strong all the time because we have something of common among ourselves. I think this is also one of the points from which we can look at storytelling in the diaspora community.
No, so again, I love the shares. Truly amazing. And it's and I think Marcia, Dr. Marcia has wrapped it up perfectly. This is not, so my story, is similar to Andre's to Dr. Marcia's. Who's got the mic open? Someone's got the mic open.
Something is wrong with your mind. What is going on there?
Is it me? No. Someone had the mic on, so that's why it was echoing. Now they turned it off. I think it was your mic, so it's fine. Right. I think lots of I grew up in Nigeria, so I had first-hand experience in Nigeria, but a lot of my stories, a lot of my influence comes from my grandparents. My granddad wrote a book, and my granddad was super successful when I was in the government, so that's where I learned and took the reality that we can be anything, and we don't have to live a certain way. And the narrative that we're all poor is just not true. But saying that's grandparents teaching us. And I think the point for me is that we need to lay the same path for our kids, for our grandkids. We need to tell stories and tell stories, write books, do stuff, build businesses, build empires. Our kids can see and say, no, I can do that too. They did, so can I. I think that's such an important part of our mission in life for all of us here today, all of us in the diaspora, all of us, even in Africa. We have to show our kids that we can do it. Again, I think the point about how history can be distorted. But we see it every day. Normally the history is distorted to favor men. Again, I think Dr. Marcia mentioned it. We have to be the heroes of our stories. We have to show people that we can be the heroes. Our forefathers were the heroes. We're the heroes today. If we don't tell the stories, who will ever know? Today's been very moving. It really has been. Normally, I guess I sit here and learn from people. But I love all the shares that we've had so far because Obehi, it makes me realize now people really, everyone on stage gets it. They really get it. That's touching. And I will also mention his childhood again. As I relate to him perfectly well because when I got to England, the paradise, the dream, I suddenly ended up in in the state system. And once you start living in a family that's not yours, you get their influence on you. So it's very hard to retain my Nigerian identity in a Ghanaian family. There's so many different levels of storytelling. That's why it's so important to us. We need to learn how to do it properly. That's my share so far.
Thank you so much for that, Annie. All right, Ikechi, you work with children, and it's important that you pay attention to that. I think I don't know if it was Freddie Douglass, who was is it Freddie Douglass? Or, I don't remember. Who was saying that there is no need that wastes much time or who are already old. It's time to concentrate on because when you concentrate on them, you are actually building the generation. Because the old are already old, they will die off. But the young ones, they are like a sponge. They're going to take up whatever you give to them. You give them something positive, they're going to grow or to become positive in society. So it's better we pay attention to it. I really want to thank you for the good work that you are doing. Now, how do you think storytelling can be used to frame, to create a frame of reference for these young children? Maybe you can help us understand.
Hi, Obehi. I was just cracking up what you said about kids, and I 110% agree. Kids are the easiest people to deal with, right? And being an educator, I know that I'm talking about the Montessori method of that's philosophy of teaching, using senses, using their senses like sight, sound, what they can touch, especially aesthetics. Kids are drawn quickly, and they have a 15 minute, many of them, that's the little ones, a 15-minute, what's it called now, attention span. So if you want to get something across to them, you can really get it really fast and get it, like, let it be quality, let it be something they relate with, let it also be quality, and let all the senses be, you know, active so that you can get that across and get them immersed into the content you're trying to lay out to them. So I would say Hollywood makes a lot of impact because they invest a lot of money into uh, animations, games. But, I would say that books still have I would go for books over those ones because as an educator, again, books have a way of like helping the mind get really, really creative, help to, those, the connective tissues or, uh, you get my point, right? And I'm, you know, over getting something that's already cooked for them and prepped for them and ready for them to just consume. But however, we live in a very fast society today. So if you are looking for what you used to get across to kids, you're going to be looking at animations, games, um, music, you know, just something fun, manipulatives, toys, plushies, things like that, that they will hold on to, see, hear, move body movements, things like that. And you really get it going, but it requires a lot of funding. I'll keep saying funding, funding, funding. That's my take. Thank you.
I was just saying before we move, as we look at children, one of the greatest things that I think we can do with our stories to help our children is to teach them not to become mirrors of other men's thoughts, but to cherish their thoughts and be very proud of who they are. So we first must teach them to become great ambassadors of themselves. They must be equipped through our stories to understand growth, to understand resilience, to understand opportunity, to understand disappointment, to understand prejudice, to understand all of those things that they are not born with. And if our stories are able to equip them in that way, then they will never become mirrors of other men's thoughts. They will create their own stories and be proud to tell it. So our storybooks, especially as an educator for me, must be carefully selected to tell genuine and authentic stories. They are not to be a wild scale. And so even as an educator, I know I am given a curriculum of my own, but I study that curriculum and I find the authentic references in the books that they recommend and so on. And I put those at the forefront. So children can understand that I am born with a story. I have my own story. My story can make a difference. My story is as meaningful as those stories. And then we can also make persons put themselves in the place of other persons when we develop those authentic stories and write their own stories that we use in the classroom and in the framework of educating. And we have that power, especially in the culture of the unbelievable and incredible stories that are being forced upon us and our children in the context of education. We have to monitor so that authentic stories are given life and that our children are empowered to write their own authentic story and place them in books and have them written. I always encourage and have my teachers have my children write their social studies story, their experience traveling, their experience speaking, their experience with disappointment, their experience with conflict, their experience with confrontation, and create measures and ways to resolve those so that they live empowered and they go out as strong persons, so much strong in themselves that they do not argue with persons who are not capable to understand where they are. And so they don't waste time being marginalized because they don't frame themselves with those types of people because they are so empowered that they are able to recognize difference and inclusion and diversity and become a part of that. That is their giving when they give of themselves.
Thank,
I just add
thank
to
you for
that
that.
quickly, Obehi. So I think that Marcus makes it, obviously a more than important point. Again, I want to build on her point earlier. We're all doing great stuff, right? We're all doing great things. Everyone here is, we're successful. We're making a difference. Let's document that. Whether it's books, whether it's videos, and whether it's reports for all I care. I'm saying let's find a way to document that and pass it on to the next generation. I say that because I've got a 14-year-old child right now, 14-year-old boy. Yes, of course, he looks at the sports people and musicians, most sports and musicians as his heroes. We here should be, we should be his heroes. We don't put ourselves forward enough. We don't tell the world our successes. We don't make it easy for the kids to see our successes. We think they're just going to, we think they're just going to see it magically. They're going to find us somehow. We don't put ourselves in front of them. We're the heroes, and we need to we need to show ourselves as the heroes. Be proud of our achievements and sing about ourselves. Talk about, so one of the things that really knocks me is musicians. Up and down the world, they always have done. They sing about big companies. They sing about Nike, about Ferrari, about Bugatti cars. What about the mums and pop shop down the road on the high street that they actually buy from? Why wouldn't they sing about us? It really, really annoys me. Someone's got to tell our story. If they won't, let's do it ourselves. That's all of us here and who are doing amazing things in business, full stop. We have a story to tell. Let's tell our stories. I hope that helps.
Yeah, sure, it does help. We should tell our story. This is why we are here. All right, Mrs.
May I
Bay.
say something, please? Okay. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
All right.
Okay,
No,
so
go on.
thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Marcia. Everything you have said, I resonate with 100%. Based on Obehi's question as to how we can, put this out there so that those in the diaspora can identify with stories. What occurred to me was I don't know so many foundations or non-governmental organizations that push the agenda of having African stories out there, maybe like forming clubs for parents, because before a content is given to a child to read, we have teachers or we have educators who go through that to ensure that, by referencing, it's following a particular scheme of work or it's going to be helping with the curriculum, basically, right? So if we had a strong front, if we had people in a foundation, perhaps that is global and, ensure that somehow, through marketing or whatever, they are very visible. They ensure that, it's like drawing parents in the diaspora to see the importance of storytelling, African storytelling, storytellers, and making it priority for, their kids to consume these safe contents. Perhaps that may be a start, because if you feel, I don't know how it is, I don't know how it runs in the Western country with approving, certain books that are African based in the scheme of work in a Western school. I don't know how that works. So if we had that as an extra, perhaps it may work. There might be interest, and we're able to pass down stories that can shape their future. Just saying. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Can
I
I
think
also
that
say
is a good
something,
point.
please?
Yeah. Please.
Okay. So everything about stories is brilliant. And but what about mentoring? And the reason why I'm saying this is that what I do in my free time over here is I am a horseback riding wrangler. So I take people out on trail rides on horses, and I get a lot of young black, I'm saying black because I'm distinguishing between white American tourists, European tourists, who come on horse rides with me, and these young black kids are terrified of horses. And I'm able to break through that. They ask to get off, I don't let them get off, and I say to them, by the time you get back here, you're going to be fine. Can you imagine how you would feel if you get off and then you're always thinking, well, what would have happened had I have completed that that tour? It happened last week with an 8-year-old. It happens every single weekend. So what about mentoring? What about taking these young people under our wings, having a mentoring service? I'm working with a 15-year-old currently on St. Kitts, who is a former gang member. He was doing drugs, he was fighting. He met his girlfriend. He's now got a scholarship to complete an engineering degree. He wants to do mechanics, and he's left all of that behind. I was worried about repercussions, and he has explained to his former gang members that he wants to improve his quality of life, and in order to do that, he has to raise his standards. They were his words, and they've totally accepted that. And now, one by one, they're contacting outreach programs to make their lives better. I think these young kids, they need leadership, and that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you so much for that, Wilson. That is actually highly valuable, and it's one of the way that we can actually intervene in the life of the people that are around us in our community. So thank you so much for that. All right, May, it's your time. Please share something with us.
Hi, Annie. I don't know how you get these topics on your show, but they're so relevant and so informative. And, it's like we have this course that we paid a lot of money for. Thank you so much. Okay. I'm from South Africa, and there is no other better country to talk about this topic than our country. Because I say that, okay, I am formerly what? My generation is Indian, and Indians were taken as slaves by the British to all over the world, Fiji, South Africa, and all of that. That's another story. But so I ended up in South Africa, and apartheid South Africa, and I was blessed, like very blessed, to be raised in the church with my dad. That our apostle is Zulu, and a big part of the congregation was black, and a small part was Indian. Of course, Indians were very minority. So I was just blessed that my parents were, black and white. Not my biological parents, but in the church, that this was family. So I was actually very blessed. And I think God gave me that so that I can influence the youth of today, which I do mentor, and coming from a very objective viewpoint. So in our country, 80% is Black. And they are still, oppressed, still very far behind. The very poor, nothing has changed much. But now what I find is that our African youth are very insecure, yet being in the majority. And so I've observed things that we actually need, and I speak to them about the confidence. And I even started writing a book. So for me, the most beautiful people, and I'm talking about like physically and mentally, people are Black African. And I kept saying that the most beautiful people in the world are African. Can you see that? And they wonder, and they're like, what? So here are some things, there are certain gifts given to certain people. Okay, you can be jealous of it, but it's the truth, that nobody else has. For example, African is born, because I've been teaching as well, also foundation phase, and we had all this mixed group concerts. And I can tell you now, our African kids always won the contest. They're just born with creativity, right? They don't go to school to learn it or anything. They're just born with it. They're creative, they're vibrant, they're gorgeous, they've got this gorgeous smile, they're happy people, they're very forgiving. If you come to South Africa, you will experience the friendliest people you've ever seen. And it doesn't matter if they are poor or oppressed, they're hospitable. If you look at Mandela, that's our African people. I mean, he was always smiling, always forgiving. And there are certain cultures, but what I don't like, we come from the most beautiful culture in the world as well, where there was a lot of unity and a family orientated and respect, huge respect. Like when we were in church, so we're all together, we speak the same language, we raise our kids the same way, whether you Indian or Black, I'm talking about my church, we were all family. But you will always find the Zulu brother or sister. It was just a habit. We have Holy Communion. So there is the stage. And, we all stand in a row, have Holy Communion, and we walk back. Can you believe he will never walk back turning his back on the pastor or the apostle? It was just a habit. He just walks backwards. He says, no, that's disrespectful. That is an African culture. Now, I just showed you one, right? And we have royalty in our country, thank God, the Zulu royals. It's a very beautiful, very, very beautiful culture. And if we don't watch like the Miss South Africas and the Miss World, we actually don't fall for that. Because if you come to our villages, and if you see our Sotho and our Tswana and our Zulu girls, like going and taking water from the river, I promise you, you will see a Miss South Africa or Miss Universe. I kid you not. I invite you to South Africa and come and have a look, right? The thing is, we African community must be confident and proud of who we are. Nobody else is like us, like nobody. Go to a concert, right? We have it in South Africa. And if there's no, Black African people in the concert, it's boring because they make everything vibrant and they can dance and thing. So there's this beauty of African people. We have to show off about it as well, because nobody else has it, right? We have to be very confident ourselves. And then I can't get when I watch English soccer. I love English soccer. And then I see the racism like towards our Black players. And I think like, what? Are you mad? Are you off your nuts? That man earns millions a week, right? The Black people are doing nothing to you. I've never seen them being ugly, or whatever to deserve that racism or deserve to look down upon. So I just can't get that. So yes, I think Black African is more minority in the world. It's very important that the stories are told. No, and if you come to South Africa, you will see pure African culture, and there is no better storytellers on the planet than the African people because it's part of their culture. Storytelling is part of the culture. If Africans were more confident of themselves, they would lead the world with their fashion, right? They are very fashionable. They can make anything. I mean, even if you see a girl that's big and you get a model next to her, I promise you the African girl will rock that dress, right? The creativity, the beauty of African women. And so we are supposed to be leading the world in the fashion industry. Why are we not? We are supposed to be leading the world in music. There's no better people in music, right? We are supposed to be leading them in any creative acting. It's all a natural culture of the African makeup, right? We're just born with it. So I'm so happy for this. We should have all become in a group or something and do something. And mind you, I also started writing a book, which I've not finished, that I wanted to tell the world, this guys, the most beautiful people in the world is African. Like, take it or leave it. It's a fact, right? And these are the reasons why, like, beat that, challenge that. So, yeah, thank you very much, Ini, for the opportunity.
More than a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing such wonderful, wonderful stories with us. I think that we can't disagree with you. Certainly, we agree with you. On nearly everything you said, pretty much everything you said, really. We're wonderful people. We know this, and we need to keep reinforcing that message. Again, like I said, especially for our kids, and our kids need to know. Don't hang your head in shame. Don't hang your head for any reason. The world really, we do great things. We're amazing people, and be proud of who we are. When you asked the first question you asked, it made me laugh. How do I get such great topics? It's not really me. I'm just a conduit for great people that I know. It's friends like Obehi who my room's on Wednesdays. That's anyone who knows me knows. My room's on Wednesday afternoon. That's my main room. I got another marketing room, and I got my Africa business talks room starting tomorrow. Beyond that, I meet great people. They're doing amazing things, and I want to say I want to get out there more. I'm like, let's do an audio room. That's how I get some of the audio rooms that have great topics. It's my friends, my clients who bring their expertise, and we just talk about it and then share it more with the world. Anyone who wants to join the Africa Business Talks room tomorrow, please DM me, connect with me. I'll happily send you the link. I'm going to invite you anyway. I'm sure I will. I want to go through many lists to invite people. So please come and share with it again, May. Come and share with us. I'd love to hear your thoughts in that room. Paulette, you are next on our list. You've been very patient. Thank you so much. The mic is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to join the people talking about starting with the youth. I create games with African content. So the African Memory Game was my first game 10 years ago. And so far, I sell in Africa, I sell in Europe, and I sell in America. So, and like the lady, I think it was Mrs. Keshi, say funding is needed because we create through, after the game, we create a platform called Teaching Africa Day, where we have all of these inventors of video games, of cartoons, of books, of game inventor like me, who come together and we kind of showcase all of the resources we have to teach our diaspora about what is Africa. How the idea starts is to tell my story is my daughter who came and asked me if I have AIDS when I was a child. because at the Black History Month, they showed them a movie where African children have AIDS. So it shocked me, but I think that we have to go over the shock and understand that if there's no teaching material to give to these children, they will just teach them what they have. And it's why the diaspora has to do something, and we have to start creating. We have to start creating. We have to put the money where it's the talk to, because it's easy to say, oh, we don't have anything, and we blame the system and we blame the budget of the government. But I think as a mother, I was able to create that. I start with my 4 children. We did that, and then we say, let's do it for everybody. And I think that as parents and as people responsible of the next generation a little bit, we have to kind of fund that what we want to see. And we will be able to do it if we all put the hands together. It's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Again, I think an important point there, but supporting each other for sure. It's I've been to a couple of audio rooms yesterday and Saturday. Mainly, I guess, African-led rooms, call it that, and they all talk about the same thing: funding, how to make ourselves investable, how to secure funding. Money is important. Of course, money is important. Money is important for all. We all need money to do our thing. When there's no money, what do you do? Do you let it go? No, you carry on. No, you work at it. You find a way to begin. And then with time, once you've proven your concept, people will be more than happy to support you financially. So I think you're doing that, Paulette. So I think it's a lesson to all of us. It's a great story to tell. If you can't get the money up front, then find a way to start local, find a way to start small, and then build from there. I think that's a lesson that we all need to learn as African business owners, African founders, Africans with great ideas. It really is. It's what we all do. It's all of us who are successful. I'd say that in inverted commas. We start somewhere. If we had that dream, we'll make it reality. Otherwise, the dream dies, and the great idea dies with it. Thank you so much for sharing with us. If anyone wants to support Paulette's ideas, even in Kate's books, please connect with everyone in the room. If you want to go, I remember Wilson saying he does horseback riding. I'm like, yeah, right, that's not me. Not me at all. I'd probably kill a horse if I got my horse's back. Close with everyone, and genuinely find out what they're doing. You never know who you can support. Who can support you. And so, Omar, I see you. How you doing, my friend? And I said, our room has run way over. Miss Obehi, let's go up the room, my friend.
Yeah, anyway, we're moving towards the close here. That is because we're having a good time. That's it. We're supposed to be for 1 hour, but now we're still here. Anyway, we're moving towards the end of it. I want to thank all of you that have been sharing your idea here. They are really very important. They are valuable. They are important for us. That is why we are talking about it. We might not have all the big budget. We might not have all the money, but if we know how to do things, we need to keep doing them. But we never know who might be out there listening to us and paying attention. And one day you might actually get somebody knocking at your door and say, "Hey, come and do that thing you say you know how to do." At that time, you are really suddenly in the driver's seat. But if you never know how to do it, or the opportunity might come one day, but it's going to be useless for you because you are not ready for it. So it is important that we continue to refine our skill in what we know how to do. And of course, talking of storytelling again, the reason I decided to put this together for over 10 years of my experience is that not everybody might know how to do the integrity of it, because storytelling might not really be as simple as it might appear. There are techniques about it. There are reasons why it works. So all those things, you might need to know it. If you want to really do it professionally, you want to get results from it. That is why I continue to stress that we need to refining the skill, because you might be born with the skill, yes, but the skill you have might actually be very raw. until you refine it, it is raw and it cannot serve you that very much, even though it might be useful. See, so it is important that we keep on refining our skill, doing what we say we are doing. If you say that you can do something, don't just say it, do it. Continue to do it. One day you will get the result for what you are. And even if no big person come around to knock on your door, you will still feel the satisfaction for having done what you say you are doing.
Absolutely. I mean, the reason I came on because I'm a good friend of I just wanted to say support you guys, and it's important for the African to know their story. I mean, Africa is a big continent, and they're all over so many 55 countries also, and so it's important to know. I've been raised to like everybody and all that cultures, and it's fact in the last game I did have a category about Africa, so I wanted to just point that out real quick with the game show. Just real brief there. I think you. How do you pronounce your name? Sorry. Oh boy.
Obehi.
Obehi. That's a nice name. So just short. I just wanted a 30 seconds there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Oman. Now, all of you, we're going to have something like 15 seconds or 30 seconds to split random. So we start with Mr. Whitson. In few seconds, what will be your final message here? Mr. Whitson is not there. All right, we'll move to Paulette. 15 seconds. Say something to conclude the conversation from your end.
I think creativity is a solution for me. And I think I just want to encourage everyone you can check out also Teaching Africa Day or website. There's so much resource we need to put out in order for this new generation to learn about the diaspora and the wealth of the diaspora. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, May, only 50 seconds. Please go ahead and conclude it.
Thank you so much, Obehi. And I think now we have to, you got it going, and we have to get together regularly to actually see how far we advanced and what we have done towards this topic. It's something that we cannot let slip again. We started a journey, and let's go forward. By the end of the year, Africa is going to be, Africans are going to be, you want to be African. That's where I want it to be. Like everybody wants to be an African. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, May. All right, Ikechi, it's your time. Please go ahead and conclude it in 15 seconds.
Okay, thank you, Obehi. Thank you, Annie, again. I will just say two things, and that's quality of the product or quality of the storyline, right? The creativity. And the second is the united front. We need to come together as one people, to get our stories out there. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of, like collaborations, vision, and intention, basically. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ikechi. All right, Whitson, it's your turn. If you are there in 50 seconds, please conclude your conversation.
Yes, sorry about that. I think that each and every one of us in here are responsible, accountable people. And I think that we have to set examples and set standards for people to follow. And you're right, if we say we're going to do something, then we should be doing it. And in order to do that, we all need accountability bodies to keep each other accountable. That's all I want to say.
All right, the hero in the room, that is Mr. Annie. Thank you so much, Annie. Please conclude it in a few seconds.
Thank you, everyone that's joined us. Thank you, everyone that stayed with us all the way through. We appreciate your time. Hopefully, you benefited from this room. If so, come back again in 2 weeks' time, same day. We'll be here talking more about more storytelling. Thank you so much, our speakers as well. You're amazing. Obehi, you're a hero, not me. I'm a conduit tonight. You are the true hero. Well done, everyone.
Thank you so much, Annie. I appreciate it. And for all of you that are listening, I just want to remind you that the book is available on Amazon. There are 5 books in there. I believe I love storytelling. That is why I put it together so that we can learn from it and continue to encourage ourselves in using storytelling, not just for the sake of talking, so that we can use it also in our businesses, leverage it, be able to connect with our audience. So look at it and see which of them that you find more interesting, or maybe all the 5 of them. Read it, and most importantly, please share your thoughts. So I thank all of you for the conversation. I really like it, and I learned a lot from what you shared today. Thank you so much. If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewanfo. Thank you so much for listening and talk to you in the next episode.